My name is John, and today this is going to be an unfiltered look at taking a static HTML website and turning it into a Flask website with a backend, potentially, eventually, maybe even have a database layer attached to it. So I'm just going to kind of dive into it. This is a start at my portfolio last year that I did, partially to kind of show my students. We can look at what it looks like now, currently. So we can kind of see, for someone that's not a designer, I think it's okay. We have a picture of myself that I'm very proud of. Um, a little bit about myself, my current title, um, you know, where I'm at. Um, and then I have broken it into several different categories that I want to highlight myself, right? One of the things that I want to do, and the reason I want to kind of create a backend on this, is so I can maybe potentially add a blog and other data that may be dynamic or things like that. I just want to open up the options and be helpful. I also want to do that just get in the practice. So one of the things I'll highlight before we dive into it is just, I talk about my web development experience, my software development experience, the game development experience, which is mostly hobby work, any data visualization work I have. Just trying to highlight all the, everything that encompasses me. And I kind of think of myself in three different categories: as an educator, as a programmer, and a competitor. And so when we transform that, I think that'll be part of that big thing. Instead of having these like categories here that are kind of boring, I'm going to break it into those three categories and break some of those things in. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. Let's just dive into it. So this is unfiltered. Um, I've unscripted look at this. Okay, so I've not planned this out. Um, I've not picked up this project since 6 months or so ago. Okay. So it's been a while since I've actually dived into this project. I know I want that Flask backend. Luckily, I have been in the habit of kind of creating some Flask apps and things like that, so kind of know where to start. Um, One place I would start if I wasn't, super familiar is I would look up either an old project or the documentation. Right? I wouldn't just start programming unless I knew what I was doing. So, okay, we're gonna create our first Flask routes. And if I wanted to speed up things, I would take it from my old code, but I'm not going to. Okay, so we'll have this is our main generating function, right? This is the function that will run. This is the function that our web server will run. Um, right now we have the debug as true, so that way any changes automatically get put in as we're editing and changing things. We've created kind of the Flask app. Now let's create our folder or our file for our routes. Okay, I want routes. So let's do our from app, import app. I want to import the app, and then I want to create our first route. Return render index.html. There we go. Okay. So this does a couple things, right? We import that Flask app. We import the render template. We have created our first app that will render that index HTML file. Okay. We need to now start making some changes to the old folders. So a couple things I have here. Okay, I have a settings here. I can safely delete that. I have CSS. That's kind of good. I have pictures here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new folder called old, which you'll see I actually have an old portfolio in here, which is probably a portfolio I had previously. Oh, look at that. Okay, this is an interesting little detour. Yeah, originally this is kind of the style I wanted to go, and actually now that we're in the middle of this, we may pull some of this into this. So one of the things I wanted to play with originally when I was creating my portfolio was when I started cutting my teeth programming, it was HTML4. This is what websites looked like. This is almost an exact recreation of one of my first websites I created when I was like, 10, right? You had like the hit counter and things like that under construction. We may bring some of this back. That's good. Interesting. Okay, so you can see I went from this to this. Maybe an upgrade, maybe a downgrade, depending on your perspective. But I have an old portfolio in there. But I'm going to move everything that is not... Move everything in there that's not what I just created. Move. Let me move that. Okay, it's taking its time. I'll need to move these things to... It's taking its time because it's not doing it. There we go. Okay, let's see, educator, let's get that in there. Okay, I mean, it says it's doing it. I'll give it a second. So while we're waiting for this, I may just kind of go over why I'm doing Flask on my back end, right? Probably, yeah. I wonder if I broke it. I got too greedy. Why I choose Flask on my back end. So one, I do it because that's what I want my students to program in. Okay, we'll let it give our errors and then we'll move it a different way. It is what I want my students to program in. Why don't I use JavaScript? Because JavaScript's very popular, right? You should learn JavaScript and use that as a backend if you want money. I don't care about that. We teach all of our kids Python, and so it's very easy to plug into Flask. Flask is, very easy to use compared to something like Django. Okay, I'm gonna try to exit this and then try this. There we go. And so it just makes sense. If I needed performance, right? Because that's the only reason you'd be like, Python's not good enough. And for, you're watching this video, you shouldn't care about performance, man. You're not there yet. I would do something like Go or Ruby on Rails. I would not do JavaScript. And I kind of that's a quirk on me. I don't like JavaScript. I don't think it's good for people. I'll use it if I have to. Okay, we moved everything into that. We now have our routes. We have our app. Now we need to create our template folder, and we'll move our index in there. We'll also create our static folder. And in our static folder, we'll actually create a folder for CSS. I could have just moved that folder probably in there, but that's okay. We'll move that in there. I guess delete that. Okay, and I'm moving the folders, I'm moving the files as I need them, right? That's kind of how I'm approaching this refactor. Okay. Let's See if it runs. I don't know if I have everything, but I won't know if I run. Okay, looks okay. Looks okay. Let's see. Okay, we got not found. Interesting. Okay, that is because we have not imported our routes from routes. We want to import all of our routes. So what this does is it imports all of our routes. That's what that star does. Just makes our life easier. If we really wanted to, we could import specific routes and things like that. But we just want them all. I don't know if I need to restart it, but I will just in case. Okay, in theory it should work with some style, but no nav. Oh, no style. Okay, let's look. Let's see what we have so far. Looks like our index is getting delivered. What I want to see is my style page is definitely not getting delivered. How do I know that? Well, one, I don't see any style, right? The other thing I could do is I could look at my styles here and I don't see any style applied. The other way I could do that is look at my sources. Like we got some errors, right? Failed to deliver the style, so I got an error there. That's how I could also know. And I could also look to see, there's a way to see what's loaded. And I'm blanking on that, but that would be useful. We don't see that loaded. But anyways, yeah, you get the idea. You get the idea. Plenty of ways to see a style is not being loaded. Well, what's the issue? Well, we're moving to Flask, right? So Flask, we have to change our link. I need to refactor this for Flask. I'm going to use AI to use this really fast, but I do know that, like, I have the idea in my head, right? I just don't have the exact syntax. So one way I could do this is I could just look up the syntax in Google and things like this. I know it's going to be URL for static index, and that's pretty much it. But there's some curly brackets and things I'm not sure about. So it should get the URL for static. So I'm gonna have this help me with the syntax. And that's how I leverage AI and Cursor, is to help me with the syntax. So I don't have to remember the exact syntax, I just have to remember the concepts. And so I know that it's gonna be like a URL for static, right? I know that Flask does this. I don't have to remember the exact syntax. I don't have to remember this is like double brackets and things like that. That's just too much. Okay, so that should load our style. Some other things we see in here. So now we're going in here. I have Bootstrap 5.3. We can see if that's the latest and change that. I have HTMX in here. I have HTMX in here because that's how I was previously getting the nav bar. We're going to end up changing that. Okay, and then we have the rest of the HTML. Now let's see what it looks like with style. Okay, closer to what I want. Why does it not look like this? Oh, well, I got rid of it. Why doesn't it look like the previous one? Because it does not have the nav bar yet. So one way I could just easily fix this is I'm going to take the nav and I'm going to move it to the templates. There's also a footer, it looks like, right? We put at the bottom. We'll move that to templates. And then I have this template. It's just the template of the HTML I use. And you can see even that template's probably wrong. I probably don't use jQuery anymore. I use HTMX, but we're not going to use either of those. Okay. So right now, how the nav works is it uses HTMX, okay, to load the nav here. So it gets that nav on load. You can kind of see it triggers a load. I love HTMX when I'm just using static sites and for components like this. Let's look at it now. Oh yeah. Why is it not? Well, probably because our HTMX get is trying to get a nav here and it doesn't know exactly where that is. We're going to end up refactoring this, so I just want to show this. That I wouldn't necessarily code this like this. I just want to make sure the nav pops up. Nope. Okay, I'm worried if I ask it to refactor it for, if I ask this to refactor for Flask, it's going to give us what I want it, our endpoint to be, not what I want to illustrate, but that's okay. Because what this should do is right here, it should pull in that nav bar right above it, okay, as a HTML component. Flask makes this really easy, so let's just refactor this for Flask. So let's refactor this for Flask. And then I'm going to give it my nav HTML. Interesting. That's how it's trying to do it. Okay, so one way it's trying to do that is by changing the nav bar is. I'm not going to do that. Okay, this is how we are going to do it. We're going to include the nav bar using the include method. So this is Flask. Okay. I don't know how to pronounce it right. Jinga 2 or something like that. Okay, so this will include the nav.html component, this right here, inside the index. Okay, makes it really easy to use components inside our stuff. And sometimes what people like to do is inside the template folder, create another folder called components that would then hold that, and then it would be, components .nav, but we're not going to do that, and that's not how you spell components. But let's see what we have now. Now we have our nav, okay? We have my name, we have the nav that I have here, we have the style. We don't have the picture yet. We have the about me, it's the same. We have this, we don't have the footer yet. So let's add the footer. Again, on the footer, maybe I don't use the footer here. Okay, so I have the footer, but I don't actually use it there. So let's move it back. This must be the footer. Okay, let's add the picture back, and then we'll be back to the first page, which is what I kind of care about right now. So in the static folder, let's create a new folder called image. IMG is what I'm going to shorten it down to, and I'm going to move the profile picture in there. Okay, and then I can delete this. And then where do I refer to that profile picture? Right here. Is that going to work? Probably not. Let's refactor this. Let's refactor this for Flask. Okay. Again, we have to refactor for the URL, right? It needs to use the static. It has to use the file name. We just need to get in the habit of we have URLs, sources, things like that. In Flask, this is how we refer to it. That's one of the big changes. So in some ways, our life gets easier right here. Some ways our life gets a little bit more complicated, but trust me, life could be way worse. We could be coding in Java or something like that. Okay. Let's see. What we got it working? No. It's looking for that static. Oh yeah. It's not called images, is it? Well, if it wants me to call it image, maybe I should call it images. Okay, I'm just gonna call it images. I'm gonna change my file name because if it's defaulting on image here, when it is generating the AI, it's going to keep doing that. And I'd prefer just to align it so I'm not having to change the AI each time. Sometimes I'll bow to the AI, very, very rarely. AI should be working for you, not the other way around. Okay. Boom. Okay. What happens if I click on something? Well, it's not going to go to the URLs, right? We need to now create our routes and put our pages there and things like that. Educator, programmer, hobbies, projects. Do I want like a competitor here? I don't know. Maybe this is a good breakdown. I don't know. Let's remake it. Okay, like I said, we should be refactoring. So let's do web development next, and figure that out. Okay. The cool part about that. So web development is inside the programmer section. And we can do the same thing. We're actually going to just move this to templates. And to make our life really easy, these are just HTML pages, right? They are just delivered directly as they are. Some of these are not finished. That's okay. Okay, so now I need routes. I've moved the front end. I have these here. But now even if I click on these, it's not going to work. Right? Even if I click on web development, it's not going to go there. One, I don't have a backend route. Two, our URLs are probably not correct, right? We're going to need to probably change our URLs so they're correct. Maybe, potentially. Let's see. And kind of talk through some of that. So let's create the routes. I'm going to create the first one just so you can see how it's done, and then I'm going to have AI do the rest. So I know before what we had was like web dev, right? If you go to programmer, if you go to jlane.dev/programmer.webdev, it would show you the web dev page that I'm going to show you, right? That is the route that we're creating right here, this new URL. That's what this does. This creates that URL. Then we just create a simple Python function. I can call it whatever I want. I'm going to call it web dev, and I'm just going to return that web dev function. All right, nice, easy. I need routes like this for the rest of my app programming. My programmer folder. Oops. My programmer. It says it's in old, but hopefully. So hopefully this will give me the routes for the rest of my programming folder. Oh no, it didn't even. I'm gonna drag and drop. Okay, hopefully it'll get the right files. If not, I'm just kind of wasting time because I could easily just do that and then do that and then do that and then that's all of them. Nope, Java. And you kind of see some of my background in here, right? We're going to be doing, you know, game development, Java stuff that I've done, things like that. So I mean, your life could be worse. Okay, yeah, it's not understanding what now it's lost. Okay, this was faster. All right, now I have the routes. Let's see if they work. Will they work? Will they won't? My guess is these may work. No, they don't work. Why don't they work? Remember, the thing that has killed us before, our links. We need to change all of our links, right? We need to change our sources. We need to change our HF, HREF, okay, our references, for our links and for our, our link anchors, right? So in our nav, let's have this refactor for Flask. Or Flask. Not the best spelling. Bing, bang, boom. Okay. Index, web dev, software, game development, software. One, this actually makes our life easier when it comes to links. I can just URL for the web dev, which is the Python definition name. It aligns with this, right? So I could do URL for software, URL for game dev, URL for data visualization. I don't have to worry about this URL part. Though technically we can use this in some contexts, and we will use that in some contexts. Okay. Guess I should make sure it works, right? Could not build a endpoint for index. For some reason, it is having problems with the index route, which is this one. So we're going to call this index instead of home, just to make everything align. We need it to reset. And then we might get an error because at home, but no, we didn't. Okay. Boom. Okay. Now we have seen the web dev page. Again, we're gonna have the same problems, right? Let's go through and let's start changing all the links, right? And how do I do that? The easiest way for me to do this is just going to be taking the style sheet, which is the same style sheet I use for all of them, all right? And going through and adding it to these. So we'll change all these so it's the correct style sheet, and you can see some of these are more complete than others. Okay, that will add some style to it. There we go. We don't have the nav bar yet, so let's fix that for all these. Right. Boom. Okay. That's the biggest thing, three factors, just the links so far. But in theory, it will make our life easier down the road once we get this all set up. Okay, now we should have a nav bar. Okay. And we can see my, will I change this? Yeah, probably, I don't know, we'll see. My web development journey, so my preference, you can kind of see, I know I have a JavaScript, TypeScript on here. Yeah, if I want money, that's what I put on here. I will code in Express if you pay me a lot of money, but I prefer something simple like Flask or even like Go or something like that. I develop courses. I need to update my projects. I have much more impressive stuff now. Talk about my old journey, blah, blah, blah. And we can see all the other ones work too, right? Now all of these work, and these are all programming aspects, right? So one thing I may want to think about is I need to change this so there's a programming one, there's a educator one, there's hobbies and projects, right? Think about how I want to do that. Maybe even like 3 different separate portfolios. I don't know. We'll kind of work on that. But we need to complete our what we're working on first, which is the rebuild. Okay, we're downhill now. Now I'm going to go back to the index. I'm going to go through, I'm going to go down, and our next thing's educators. So we have some other links in here that one, I don't think will work, and two, need to be redone. So let's update this for Flask. And then I'm going to do something like, that's what I meant to do. Oops. So changing the links once again, just boring stuff at this point. This point's kind of yeah, downhill. Okay, so we've changed that. I've not changed the project links yet because I don't have those moved over yet. Let's ensure that on the index those work. Okay, seems to all work. Data visualization. Okay, we can see my data visualizations. These are all external links, so no problems there. Okay, now our next one's education, right? Can't get in there yet. I kind of debate. I wrote something kind of personal about getting into education from tech. And so let's see. This used to be educator to education. So we'll make a new folder and we'll call it educator. And we'll move education to there. Okay, anyways, we will fix it. So we will mix the style, regardless if we're gonna use this down the road. I'm also gonna remove all the HTMX, but I'll probably do that with a find and delete instead of by hand at the end. Okay, and then move the nav in there. Oh, my colleague Silver has joined us. Silver, do you have anything to say? No. She's quite happy with the work. Okay. Now we need to change our link again. You know, now we can start doing it ourselves if we wanted. Ourselves. Yeah, I'll do most of it. And then test it. Oh, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because we have not written our backend route, right? We need the route to deliver the actual web page. So it's asking for the web page, but the server's not able to deliver it because there is no route yet for it. So we've now created our education route that will pull that. I don't know why I'm reloading. Okay, we see my essay. Everything looks good there. Now a piece of crud. Oh, nice. Okay, oops. I have deleted that. Actually, let's replace that. So just yesterday I completed a 2.0 version of this. So let me pull up what that looks like. Oh no. This is essentially a tutorial on getting started with CRUD apps and Flask and what I've gone over now. I'm going to share it. Oops, cancel. What are we doing? Let's publish. Okay. View site. Okay, there we go. And so we'll put that on there instead. Piece of crud. My Tableau still is pretty good. Education and dying profession. It's a great Tableau if you want to get depressed about educators going into my volunteer management system. I may want to update that too. Solaris is the old one. We will replace it with this, our actual volunteer management system. Okay, and then our final one down here is projects for video editing. So, projects, yeah, I guess projects good enough folder. Projects, video editing. Okay. Remember, we've moved this, so now what we need to do is we need to change this URL. Video editing. And then we need to create a backend called video editing, right? That delivers that page. Okay. Now I need to run it, stopping it and running it just so I can get the address again. Okay, now let's try try it out. Video editing goes to that page. Oh, we need to edit the styles. Okay, volunteer management system should go out. Piece of crud should go out. Okay. Video editing, remember we need to change two things. We need to add the style. And you know what I should have done? I should have just did edit, find and replace. You're watching me do something stupid. But I'm too deep. Find and replace. Because that's what we're gonna do for this. So I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna replace it with nothing. And then replace all. Perfect. So, okay. Now, and why did I remove the HTMX? Well, we're not using it anymore, and it's gonna cost us a little bit of time to load that, right? So there's no reason to have a dependency that we're not using. Okay, we look like everything is now working. We are done. We have refactored. Let's see what else we have in here and think about what our next steps are. So I originally had a footer in here that I was going to put maybe on the bottom of everything, but I think now rethinking, I'm thinking about breaking it into three categories, right? So you can click on the educator, you can click on the programmer, you can click on the hobbies or something like that. I have my construction assets. I may still bring some of those back. Tried to do some animation stuff. You can kind of see here. I don't know how well that worked out. Let's look. I don't know what this. Can't remember what I was trying to do. Okay. Is that useful? No, it's just nothing. Okay. So some of the stuff I don't even need. You know, it's old. Here is here's about my first year teaching, my first school, which I really liked. Um, hmm. I don't know. I might bring this back as my educator. So the last thing I'll do is I will bring that down to educator. When I do that, I'm going to change the style. And then include the navbar. Okay. And then I'm gonna need to fix all the pictures. And how I'm gonna do that is, um, oh man, okay, I got a lot of pictures in here. Is this where the pictures are? They're in pics, which is in there. Okay, I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna paste it. I'm gonna rename this to LHS. Pics. Okay, so these more pictures than I need. Probably should trim them down. But first of all, let's change this. Even though this is not going to be right, I want to change this so it is LHS pics. The reason I'm going to do this is because I'm going to have AI rewrite this code real fast for me, but I don't want it to mess up the folder. I think it'd be easier if it knew the folder's now called HL's pics. Okay. Need to refactor the pictures for Flask. And then I'll give it the image folder. But yeah, we're about done with the rewrite. The second part of this will be then adding to it, right? Exploring new features and things like that. It'll be much more less straightforward and a lot more messy. Okay, looks like static files found it correctly. Looks like everything was named right. I don't have that link directly here, right? I have educator, but I don't have like an LHS or anything like that. So what we can do is this, we can just add it. That's not a problem. And we know that the tech works. I'm actually going to remove the tech one. And then we need the route for the backend, right, to deliver our page. Probably didn't reload. We should be good. One thing to be careful about, when you make changes to the backend, it takes a second to reload, right? We have that debug equals true, but it does take a second to reload. So don't go too fast or you'll have problems. Okay, let's look at Lawrence High School. We see, my whiteboard. Chesty the Lion. See my classroom. Almost died of heat stroke the first day. The students that I miss. The students were great. You know, students are great. Mr. Lane, you are a pretty average teacher, but you're also an average person. So that's great. I let them eat lunch with them a couple times. So yeah, we are at the end of kind of everything I had before. Some ideas of where we want to go. Hopefully you enjoyed this kind of unfiltered, unscripted, unplanned look at refactoring. And right now, we've created this backend, but we haven't really done anything different, right? It's the exact same thing. We've just added complexity, but we're going to be using that backend for stuff down the road. So thanks for watching. I'm John. Hope you enjoyed.